When he reaches out after silence, it can trigger a rush of emotions. You might feel a jolt of adrenaline, a flutter in your chest, or maybe even a sense of relief. The phone lights up with his name, and for a moment, it feels like everything is right again. You may even feel like this is the moment you've been waiting for. After all, someone who disappeared without explanation is now back, and that can stir up old feelings, old memories. Your mind races with possibilities. Could this time be different? What does it mean that he's reaching out now? But here's the truth. In that moment of excitement, your first instinct is often to react immediately. Maybe you want to rush to respond. Maybe you're planning the perfect comeback text, the one that makes you seem cool but still interested. But what if, instead of responding right away, you paused? What if you took a moment and asked yourself a very important question? What do I actually want here? We're so conditioned to think that when someone reaches out, especially after being silent, we owe them a response. There's this societal pressure to fill the void and make the situation less awkward, to seem as though we're in control when the reality is we're often not. We think we need to respond because it's the polite thing to do. But here's where the shift happens. Your power lies in the pause. When someone reaches out after going silent, they're not entitled to an immediate response from you. You don't have to drop everything just because they decided to come back. In fact, the more emotionally intelligent thing to do is to take a step back. This pause isn't about being cold or distant. It's about taking control of your emotional energy. It's about recognizing that their message isn't the end of the world, and it certainly isn't the beginning of something new unless they show they've changed. The pause is your opportunity to regain perspective. You have to ask yourself, what do I actually want from this? What do I deserve? What does this person bring to my life now? In fact, when you take that pause, you show them that your peace is not up for negotiation. You're not waiting for them to come back to fill an emotional void. The truth is, when someone goes quiet and then suddenly pops back into your life without explanation, they're not entitled to access you just because they're feeling nostalgic or lonely. You're not here to soothe their ego or feed their curiosity. You're here to decide if their presence is something you still want in your life. And that decision, my friend, should never be made from a place of desperation or fear of being alone. And here's where it gets really important. When you pause and take your time, you take the emotion out of it. You stop focusing on what you think their message means and start focusing on what it actually means for you. What has changed since they went silent? Did they come back with clarity and accountability? Or are they just testing the waters, sending a vague text to see if you're still available? The longer you wait, the clearer your power becomes. When you make someone wait for your response, you're showing them that you're not someone they can just pick up and put down whenever it's convenient for them. You start to demand respect for your emotional energy, your time, your heart. This pause creates the space you need to assess whether or not this person is worthy of your attention, not based on what they used to be, but who they are now. You're not going back to an old version of the person you once cared about. You're assessing if they've grown, if they've done the work, if they're ready to show up in a way that aligns with your values and standards. So, don't rush. Don't get swept away by the excitement of hearing from someone who's been gone. Take a deep breath and remember, this moment is yours to control. Your peace, your boundaries, and your standards are your responsibility. And if they don't respect that, you're under no obligation to give them a piece of your time. In fact, the longer you wait, the more you make them realize that your presence is a privilege, not a right. When you pause, you step into your power and stop letting someone else dictate the pace of your life. Now, after you've taken that initial pause and centered yourself, you need to consider something that often gets overlooked: matching energy. We live in a world that rewards quick responses and instant gratification. But when someone who's been silent suddenly reaches out, it's crucial to remember that the message you receive is not a blank slate. It's not an automatic invitation for you to drop everything, get emotionally invested, and rush to reconnect. In fact, it's often a test. Think about it. When someone goes silent and then reappears with just a simple "hey" or "I've been thinking about you," What does that actually tell you? The reality is that those messages often don't come with clarity, accountability, or a true understanding of the hurt or confusion they may have caused. It's a lazy, low-effort attempt to re-enter your life without putting in the necessary work. That's not someone demonstrating genuine interest or commitment. That's someone testing the waters to see if they can still get a response. So here's where the concept of matching energy comes in. When someone reaches out after silence, your response shouldn't be based on old feelings or emotions rooted in the past. It should be rooted in the present reality. You need to meet them at their level, not higher, not lower, but exactly where they're at now. If their message is vague and lacks real intention, you don't need to meet them with paragraphs of excitement, joy, or questions about how they've been. Instead, keep your response measured and calm. Matching energy is about assessing the effort they're putting in right now and then reflecting that back in your response. If all they've done is send a brief, shallow text, don't let your response be overly enthusiastic or give away too much emotionally. Make them show up with more effort before you give them your time and energy. It's about maintaining your emotional boundaries and ensuring that your worth isn't dictated by someone else's lack of effort. Here's a key point. Don't mistake activity for intention. Just because someone sends a text doesn't mean they're trying to rebuild something real. It could just be an impulse, a moment of nostalgia, or a desire for validation. And when you jump at that text, you're giving them validation without them having done the work to earn it. They don't get to walk back into your life just because they feel like it. They need to show up with intention, with clarity, and with real change. When you meet their energy with the same level of effort, you make them step up or step out. There's no room for complacency, no middle ground. They either rise to the occasion or they fade away, and you're left knowing you didn't compromise your standards just for the sake of filling an emotional void. You're not here to be anyone's emotional backup plan, and the sooner you realize that, the more control you have over your emotional life. Remember, matching energy doesn't mean playing games. It means protecting your peace and showing the other person that you're not available for half-hearted efforts. You've been through too much to settle for less than you deserve, and this is where your strength lies, in the calm, measured way you respond. Your self-respect demands that you don't tolerate anything less than what aligns with your values and your boundaries. Now, let's talk about the most powerful tool you have when responding to someone after silence. The power of silence itself. It might sound counterintuitive, but sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all. It's not about being cold or playing games. It's about using your silence to reflect the boundaries you've set for yourself. In a world where instant communication is so easy, where texting is a reflex, silence can be an incredibly strong statement. When you respond immediately, you risk validating someone's re-entry into your life without any consideration for what they've done, or more importantly, what they haven't done. But when you choose silence, you're forcing the situation to hold space for truth and clarity. It's like holding up a mirror to their actions. Your silence makes them reflect on whether their message has enough substance to justify your attention. It's your way of asking, do you really deserve access to me, or are you just testing the waters for convenience? This is where many people go wrong. They feel guilty for not responding right away, thinking they're being rude or immature. But in reality, silence is not a punishment. It's a form of self-respect. You're not punishing them for disappearing. You're protecting your peace. You're not obligated to fill the silence with words just because they've returned. In fact, your silence can be a much clearer message than any text you might send. It says, I've spent my time focusing on myself. I've created my peace, and I won't let anyone disrupt that unless they're willing to show up with real intent and effort. Here's the truth. When someone disappears, they're saying that you're not their priority at that moment. Maybe they got distracted, maybe they weren't ready, maybe they were just looking for something else. But when they reappear without any real explanation, you don't need to rush to fill that silence. You don't owe them your words. You've done the emotional work. You've grown during the silence, and that growth is something you must honor. Silence isn't just about stepping back from the situation, it's about stepping forward in your own power. It's about showing them that they can't just walk back into your life on their terms without having to prove that they've changed, that they've evolved, and that they respect your boundaries. If their return is anything less than that, your silence is a message in itself. It's easy to get caught up in old feelings, the nostalgia, the what could have been, and feel the urge to rush back into something familiar. But don't fall for that trap. Silence protects you from those fleeting emotions that cloud your judgment. It gives you time to think, time to remember how you felt when the silence first began. Were you confused, unsettled, unsure of your place? Don't romanticize those emotions. Honor the reality of how you felt and how far you've come since then. So, next time they reach out, take a step back. Don't feel like you need to respond immediately. Use that silence to assess whether this person truly deserves your time and energy. Your silence, when used with intention, can be a boundary that says, "I'm not here for breadcrumbs, and I won't settle for less than I deserve." It's one of the most empowering things you can do. As you sit with the silence and reflect, one of the most important things you need to consider is how your response, when you choose to give one, reflects your self-worth and your standards. This isn't about punishing anyone. It's not about trying to make them feel bad for what they did or manipulating the situation. It's about protecting what you've built for yourself since they've been gone. When someone reaches out after silence, it's easy to fall back into old patterns, especially if you've missed them. You might want to rush into the conversation, rehash old feelings, or pretend like everything is fine. But remember, your response isn't just for them. It's a message to yourself as well. You're telling yourself, this is the kind of treatment I will accept in my life, and this is the kind of treatment I will not tolerate. What does that message look like? It's calm. It's measured. It's not an emotional outpouring. If you've set standards for yourself in relationships, whether it's about trust, respect, or consistency, then your response needs to reflect those standards. If they've shown up with a lazy message like, "Hey, I've been thinking about you," don't feel like you need to fill in the blanks for them. This isn't an open invitation for you to pour your heart out. They're not offering you a comeback. They're offering you a test, seeing if you're still available. And here's the thing. You don't need to respond out of old feelings. You need to respond from a place of self-respect, from a place of clarity. Ask yourself, what has changed since they've been gone? Have they come back with real intention? Have they apologized? Have they shown that they've grown? If the answer is no, then that tells you everything you need to know. You don't need to keep playing the same game. You don't need to keep giving chances to someone who isn't truly showing up for you. Responding from your standards doesn't mean being dismissive or cold. It means being clear about what you need. It might look like something simple like saying, "It's been a while. What made you reach out?" That's not playing games. That's setting a boundary. You're not saying you don't care. You're just saying, if you want back in, you need to prove it. You need to show me you've changed. You need to show me that you're here for something real. When you respond from this place of clarity and confidence, it changes the dynamic. You're no longer the one waiting for signs of interest. You're the one in control, deciding whether this person gets a place in your life. You're not impressed by a text message. You're impressed by actions, by change, by consistency. That's what you should be looking for. And if you don't see it, then don't feel pressured to respond at all. Your response, or lack of it, reflects your boundaries and self-respect. Remember, the more you respect your own standards, the more others will respect them too. If someone truly values you, they'll want to meet you at your level. They won't want to re-enter your life with vague messages and half-hearted effort. If they do, then you have your answer. They haven't done the work. They haven't earned the chance to be a part of your life again. Now let's take this one step further and address something that often gets overlooked: actions over words. When someone reaches out after a period of silence, it's tempting to focus on the message itself. The words may sound sweet, maybe even nostalgic. You might feel that old spark, that rush of excitement when you see their name pop up on your phone. But here's the catch. Words alone mean nothing if there's no action to back them up. Think about it. How many times has someone said, "I miss you," or "I've been thinking about you," without ever making any effort to show you that they've changed, that they've learned from the silence, that they actually care? You've heard the words before. You've heard the promises, the sweet nothings that made you feel like things might finally be different. But the reality is, thinking about you doesn't fix what's broken. It doesn't rebuild trust. It doesn't explain why they disappeared in the first place. A message, no matter how sweet it sounds, is just a message. It doesn't have the power to heal past wounds or make up for lost time. If someone truly values you, they're not just going to send a text. They're going to show up with effort, with accountability, with intention. They're going to make it clear that they've reflected on the past, that they've learned from their mistakes, and that they're ready to do the work necessary to rebuild what was lost. And here's the truth. You should never confuse activity with genuine effort. Sending a text, making a quick call, those are all actions that require minimal effort. But effort in relationships isn't about sending a message to see if you're still around. It's about making consistent actions that show commitment, that show real change, that demonstrate growth. And most importantly, it's about showing up for you, not just when it's convenient, but when it counts. When you receive a message like, "I've been thinking about you," don't be fooled into thinking that it means something profound. A person can think about you without ever doing anything for you. They can miss the comfort of your presence without ever showing up in a way that proves they care. Words can be easy. Showing up consistently is what counts. So when you choose to respond, don't base your reply on the words alone. Look for the actions that follow. Did they just send a message hoping to slide back into your life without putting in the necessary work? Or did they come back with sincerity, with clarity, and with a plan to show you that they're ready to do better? If the answer is unclear or vague, don't waste your time wondering what it means. The truth is simple. Action speaks louder than words. And if the person reaching out isn't showing up in a way that matches your standards, then that's your cue to step back and evaluate what you really want. Now that you've taken the time to pause, reflect, and evaluate the energy and actions behind their message, the next step is to consider what happens when you set the tone. This is where you really shift the dynamic in your favor. It's not about playing hard to get or pretending to be indifferent. It's about ensuring that your response reflects your boundaries, your standards, and your self-respect. Too often, when someone reappears after silence, people feel a rush to answer immediately, almost as if they've been waiting for this moment. And when they do respond, it's often enthusiastic, emotional, and filled with hope that maybe this time it will be different. But here's the problem. When you respond with that kind of energy, you inadvertently send the message that you've been waiting for them, that you're available at their convenience, and that you'll accept anything they offer, even if it's not enough. When you set the tone, you stop letting the other person dictate the pace. You're no longer reactive to their actions. You become proactive in creating the kind of relationship dynamic you deserve. So, when they reach out, you have the power to decide how you respond. You don't have to rush to fill the silence or immediately open the door. Instead, you create a space where they must prove that they're worth letting back in. Your response should say, "I see you, but if you want a place in my life, you're going to have to show me that you've changed, that you're serious, and that you respect me." This is where that simple, calm response like, "It's been a while. What made you reach out?" becomes so powerful. It puts the ball back in their court. It lets them know that you're not emotionally invested in their message just because they sent it. Instead, you're emotionally invested in what they're bringing to the table now. What's different? Why should you let them back into your life after they've been gone for so long? Setting the tone is about clarity. When you respond with clarity, you stop confusing nostalgia and familiarity with genuine connection. You don't fall back into the trap of thinking that because you had a history, it means you should immediately pick up where you left off. History is important, but it doesn't guarantee that someone gets to take up space in your life again. What matters now is the present moment, what they bring to the table today, not what they used to bring when things were easier. And here's the real shift. When you set the tone with calm confidence, you change the power dynamic. You stop being the one who's waiting for them to make their move, and you become the one evaluating whether or not their presence adds value to your life. You're not chasing after closure, emotional validation, or the hope that they've finally realized what they've lost. Instead, you're letting them show you, through their actions and words, if they're worthy of your time and energy. In that moment, you're in control. You're not reacting out of fear or scarcity. You're responding from a place of strength. You're not the one who needs reassurance. You're the one who deserves consistency, clarity, and effort. And if they can't offer that, then you're okay with silence. In fact, you're empowered by it because you know that silence isn't rejection, it's redirection. As you continue to evaluate the situation, it's crucial to remember that your response isn't just about what they did, it's about what you're willing to accept going forward. If someone has left you in silence before, they've made a choice. They've shown you that, at least at that moment, you weren't a priority. And when they come back, just because they reappear on your screen doesn't mean you need to forget that reality. The silence wasn't just absence, it was a statement, it was a decision, and now their return has to be treated as such. When you're deciding how to respond, think about how much emotional work you've already done on your own since they've been gone. You've learned to value yourself. You've learned that you are worthy of consistent effort, not intermittent attention. And if someone has disappeared before, your job isn't to act like nothing happened. It's to hold them accountable for the space they left behind. Let's be clear, you're not punishing anyone by not responding right away. You're not holding a grudge. You're simply recognizing that your emotional energy is precious, and if they want access to it again, they need to demonstrate through their actions, not just their words, that they deserve it. When they show up in your life again, it can't be business as usual. It needs to be something earned, not something casually picked up like it's no big deal. Think about it. If someone goes silent on you for days, weeks, months, or longer, and then reaches out with a simple "hey" or "I've been thinking about you," what does that really mean? Do their words carry weight, or do they just signal that they're bored, lonely, or nostalgic? You have to separate the emotion from the reality. What's their real motive? Are they genuinely interested in rebuilding something meaningful, or are they just looking for attention? This is where you can really set the standard. You have every right to be curious, but that curiosity shouldn't lead you back into old habits or old patterns. It should lead you to honor your growth. Ask yourself, do I want to go back to how things were, or do I want something different this time? Am I being chosen, or am I being recycled? And here's the hardest truth. Sometimes silence after they reach out is the clearest response you can give. If you don't feel like they've earned the right to be in your life again, then your silence isn't a sign of rejection. It's a sign of clarity. It's saying, you've had your chance, and you haven't shown me that you've changed. The power lies in your ability to recognize the difference between someone who truly wants to reconnect and someone who simply wants to see if they still have access to you. If they're not showing up with real intention, then the answer is simple. They don't deserve to be there. In the end, everything comes down to self-worth. When someone reaches out after silence, the way you respond is a reflection of how much you value yourself, not just how much you value them. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of hearing from someone who's been absent, especially when you've missed them. But you must remember that your response should never come from a place of longing or insecurity. Your worth is not tied to their reappearance. It's not defined by whether or not they choose to come back into your life. If you choose to respond, it should be with clarity, calm, and respect for the boundaries you've set. You don't have to give an immediate answer or pour your heart out. A simple, straightforward response like, "It's been a while. What made you reach out?" sets the tone without over-investing emotionally. It puts the onus on them to show you that they've changed, that they've learned, and that they're serious about rebuilding something meaningful with you. But remember, this is also about knowing when not to respond. Silence, when used intentionally, is just as powerful as any message. When someone reappears and their message is vague, shallow, or doesn't reflect the effort you deserve, your silence is not only justified, it's necessary. You're not withholding because you're punishing them. You're withholding because you understand that you deserve more. You deserve clarity. You deserve effort. You deserve consistency. And if they can't offer that, then your silence is the clearest message you can send. So the next time someone reaches out after disappearing, remember this. Your worth isn't up for negotiation just because they decided to text you. It's not about making them feel bad. It's about respecting your own boundaries and showing them that you've grown too. When someone disappears and then reappears, you have the right to ask, what's different now? Have you changed? Are you willing to show up for me in the way I deserve? And if their response doesn't match your standards, that's your answer. Don't feel obligated to fill the silence with your response. Let them prove that they've earned the right to be in your life again. Your self-worth is something that cannot be compromised, and no one should have access to it unless they truly deserve it. You're not here to chase anyone. You're not here to settle for the bare minimum. You're here to create a life where you are valued, where your presence is respected, and where the people who are allowed into your space treat you with the love and effort you deserve. So, when that message arrives and you feel that initial rush of excitement, take a breath. Use the silence as your tool, your shield, your strength, because in the end, how you respond is a reflection of how much you respect and love yourself. And if someone can't respect that, then it's not your loss. It's their opportunity missed.